am Carolyn, Latanision, and I'm very pleased to be a Kabbalah master. The primary focus of my work is kind of all over the place. I have been painting all my life, and I could pare it down to say that much of my focus is architectural. Buildings, even interiors of buildings, and people, and the interconnection between people and architecture. I have two vices. One is reading and one is painting. I don't remember ever being interested in anything else besides those two. I went to the same college my mother went to in Pennsylvania as part of the state system there. Kutztown University of Pennsylvania. It has always had a very good art education program, and so that's what I studied. I really wanted to be in fine arts, but in time, that's where I ended up anyway. We went to Japan in the early 70s, and I have always loved Japanese art. There was something that clicked in my head at that point about the art I saw there, the land, just the general feeling in Japan about, from an artistic aesthetic sense. I came back, pulled out my mother's old watercolors and started to work with watercolor, and I have never left them, although I still work in other media, but I love the challenge of watercolor. It's always a gamble. There's always something happening. I put the paint on the paper and it moves. It does things. So I've stuck with watercolor for the most part. We were in Havana actually the very week that President Obama lifted restrictions, and people were just so happy on the streets. People live very simply there. They don't have a lot of money to spend. They're on a lot of rations. Paint is in the same category. There's not a lot available to them, and so they, and it is not a lot of paint in general, but not a lot of different colors either necessarily. So everything is rather colorful there that can be painted structurally, but the colors are dependent on what they can get their hands on at any one time. I found that many places were in, of course, disrepair, and I just happened to pass this, and I call it a portal. The painting is Home Portal, where everything was painted this dull blue-green, pipes, wires, you name it. But looking through there was this wonderful burst of yellow and flowers. So someone had made their little spot, a cheerful, colorful place to be amidst all of this other dull paint. And you could see all the wires all over the buildings, all the exposed pipes, but it just struck me as being a burst of happiness. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which was the home of the main plant of Bethlehem Steel. I lived within several blocks of the blast furnaces. It was always a very noisy, extremely dirty, and extraordinarily smelly place to live with the coke works there. I never thought of it as beautiful, but I was always interested in the structures. There are several bridges that cross the Lehigh River where the plant is located along 4.5 miles along the Lehigh River. And I used to walk. I walked everywhere. We didn't have a car, so I was always walking, and I used to stop on the bridges and just hang over the edges and watch what was going on because there was a lot of activity, and the trains ran along that track. I think looking at those buildings, looking at the structures, looking at the light, really influenced why I do a lot of architectural subjects. In terms of people being in my paintings, everyone in Bethlehem worked at the steel plant. All of the men in my family were literally laborers there. And there's a lot of family history attached to that. And I think that my interest in people has to do with the role that people play in not only in industry but in everyday life, on sidewalks. And I like to paint paintings, I should say, that if they don't have people in, at least there's a hint that people have been there because of that experience of mine growing up. I have not been able to get as much of my own work done because I am spending a lot of time keeping up with 3 Zoom classes. There's time that I have to spend planning to do a video, and then I have 3 classes of 10 people each roughly, and they have to send me multiple images each week, their ideas, their photographs that they want to use, plus their paintings, both half finished and finished, because I share all of those during the class session. So they all have to be downloaded, relabeled, filed, pulled back out again for the Zoom classes. So it's time consuming. But the interesting thing is that I have somebody in my class who's in Kansas, I have somebody in my class who's in Vancouver, and I have another person in class from Florida. So that is one benefit that the Zoom classes have, enabling people to join in without being on site. They've all gotten to kind of know each other better than they would otherwise. I think because I've been painting all of my life. My mother was an artist. She was a very fine artist, and as well as an art teacher. I still have people find me online say, "Oh, I had your mother as an art teacher. She was so good. I just loved her." And it's so exciting to see that you're creating art as well. So I would have to say that growing up, art was always encouraged, and it just was always part of my life. And I never really wanted to do anything else.